Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Women Making Big Sales. I am super excited about this. I had a conversation with Magdalena Bibik before this interview, and there's some discussions that I think can really inspire you when it comes to going after business and corporate clients. So I can't wait to start talking to Magdalena about this. So hello, Magdalena. Welcome to Women Making Big Sales.
Thank you. Hello. Thank you for having me. I'm super excited. And I also have my assistant here, my Doberman with me because he does whatever I do at the office. So it's two of us today.
Yes. So for anybody who's listening to this podcast, make sure to check out my YouTube channel. We've got Zumo here. Zumo is Magdalena's assistant, furry friend, here to inspire us and share and talk about sales strategy with us. So if we're lucky, we might hear Zumo having a little bit of bark and sharing his thoughts on how to get big sales with us. Um,
That's that's actually true because he's kind of the reason why I rebranded my company. I took it online already 3 years ago. We
yeah.
were way ahead of COVID. I adopted him from Ireland. He's a rescue dog.
Ah,
And he is the reason I changed the way I work. So he actually has a title. He's called the Eureka Moment Assistant. So me
Eureka
and
moment
my
assistant.
Eureka Moment Assistant are very excited to be here.
We're super honored to have him with us. So before we get straight to tons of questions I want to ask you, could you share with the audience what you do and what your company's about?
Yeah, my company is about helping people create better ideas, and it sounds like big words, but actually, I enter hands on and look at an idea and help to make it better, more profitable, easier to sell, and I refine it. And sometimes I walk in and help people to get unstuck. Maybe they don't have any ideas at all, and sometimes they have too many ideas and would want to go after each and every one of them. So I help them with that. But more often than not, I walk into a situation where there is an idea that magically doesn't become reality. For some reason, it doesn't become a reality. And with that, I can oftentimes help.
Yes, and based on the conversation we'd had before, I'm going to share with the audience and ask you some questions that really changed how you view your business, and that really because of a simple change of strategy that transformed how your sales been doing and the success you've been seeing. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then we'll also love to ask you about creating new ideas when it comes to your sales process when we're trying to get unstuck and some of the key strategies. I think you're going to share with us some of the strategies we can all use when we feel stuck in our sales process. So when we had our conversation originally, I was curious about how to create new ideas, but as we started having that conversation, I noticed something really important that I really want to share with the audience because I think this is really going to impact all the listeners out there. um, so you mentioned a little bit that COVID changed, and there's COVID situation. You knew that you need to pivot, and you decided to have a bit of change of strategy. Can you share with us what happened?
Until COVID, I was doing a lot of different things, and I loved teaching. So I would take on all the teaching assignments I could get, and I would teach anything and everything about entrepreneurship. I was lucky to have a big project at an education institute here in Sweden, where I'm based, and it was anything about sales and marketing and branding. And I discovered after each lesson or each keynote I had, people had the same kind of questions for me, and they were all revolving around creating ideas. How do we get ideas? How do we make those ideas a reality? And this always came back, regardless of what class it was, what education program it was. They wanted me to talk more about ideas. Um, and for as time went on, I did something. I have a mentor who is a very, very, very smart person, and he taught me about the stop doing list, which means you put everything that you might quit doing on your stop doing list, and then you tick those things off one after another, not over a day, but maybe over a course of a year or two or three. So the more questions about ideas came in after each session, the more I started thinking maybe I should take away some of those things I'm teaching and teach more about ideas. So I could did it. I pivoted a little bit throughout 2 3 years, and suddenly anything that was left on that list was about idea generation. So I started to find my path, and at the same time there was this thing with a question I've been getting for the last 15 years. I have a solid education. I have a double master. I have a master of laws, and then I also have a master in business economics. And those students of mine would ask me, they would say, you know what, if you were to do it all over again, would you still study law and business economics? And each and every time I said, no, I should have studied psychology. And when I answered that question too many times, I thought to myself, you know what, why not? So actually, I'm running my business, I'm running my idea generation agency, and I am studying psychology at the same time. And once I started studying psychology, I found the last piece of my niching puzzle. So I created something I call psychology of ideas. My own niche, I don't know anybody else who works with it. No, people now are starting to understand what it is. But when I first Googled it, there was nothing. So it was like the Google God was saving this niche for me. Um, and I made this brave decision to actually niche to this super narrow, still not yet existing niche during the pandemic. And I thought to myself, why not? People are pivoting and doing a lot of different things. And I think the smart thing would be to widen and start teaching about anything and everything again. But then I said, you know what? Let's try this niche, and it actually showed to be a very successful move. So I went from very broad to extremely narrow in what I work with.
And how has that changed you in terms of your sales and then communication with the clients?
The first time I heard the word, you as the expert in psychology of ideas, I got goosebumps. And it didn't take a very long time. It did not take months even. So I was communicative. I told people that, I created my own niche. I call it psychology of ideas, and this is what it's all about. Um, and it kind of stuck, it clicked for people. So suddenly I went from being maybe even replaceable to being an expert in something very, very narrow. What I was nervous about was, when niching down, would there be enough people, enough customers for me in my market? And I'm based in Sweden, so I speak Swedish most of my time, but I also work in English and Polish. So what I did was I changed a lot of my communication from Swedish to English. So now I have more clients, a bigger market, but I still have this very narrow field of business. But suddenly people started seeing me as the expert. And that opens so many doors and gives me so much more validation and gives me bigger sales, obviously. And there's
That
no competition.
That is super exciting to see. I often hear women asking me, how do I compete against bigger guys, more established competitors? I think we talked about McKinsey and things like that. When we go after corporate clients, we often have to compete with those very much bigger competitors. As small business owners, one of the key strategies to competing with bigger names is to niche down, to be the expert in something, specialize in specific industry. And I'm super excited to see that simple strategy and creating a niche for you were able to give you such a big impact. But did it come about just suddenly, or was it, I think you had that conversation with me, that this idea of niching down started back in
Mhm.
2013, many years ago? Can you just share with us that
I
process?
Yes, and this is I'm very grateful for the story, but at that time it hurt me so much. It was like a dagger. I was running a restaurant, which was one of my 10 projects among many things. So I did everything because I'm the person who thinks that everything is fun.
Mhm.
So I was doing everything because everything was fun. And I had a visit from a an acquaintance who came into the restaurant just to have lunch, and then I would almost brag about all my projects, and I wanted to share because he's a very established businessman, and I wanted to just tell him about everything, all cool, exciting things I was doing. And then he said to me, and I remember this, although it was 2013, long time ago. He said to me, "Aha." And I still don't know if it was with good intentions or bad, I don't know. But he said, "Ah, so if you are doing so many different things, that means that you're not really good at any of them, are you?" Because he means that in order to become very good at something, it takes time. And I do agree with that. But at that time, I felt very hurt because I assumed that I actually was good at all the things I was doing. Probably not as good as I could have become at one, as an expert, as the expert of that thing. But this stuck with me, and I still remember the situation, and I remember I didn't like hearing that. And it got me thinking, maybe what if he's right? And then I started taking away thing after thing until there was just maybe two or three things left, and then I narrowed it to only idea generation. So I removed many of my project that year.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I totally agree with that experience as especially when it comes to going after business and corporate clients. These people, they're extremely busy and things are very chaotic. And sometimes when we are good at everything, it's hard for them to really pinpoint exactly
Yeah.
what we do. But if we can niche down and be known as something, somebody who's expert at something, then it
Yes.
becomes a lot easier to communicate what you do, who you are.
Yes, it gives us credibility as well because they don't want to hire somebody who's kind of good at everything. They want the expert at that little thing. And it took me way too many years to understand. But once I did, it turned out fine. And I read this book by Seth Godin named "This Is Marketing." Or if you haven't read this book, I mean, everybody, all I think all business owners need to read this book. And he speaks about the smallest viable audience. And I think as small business owners, we oftentimes try to reach after an audience that is bigger than we actually really need. So maybe perhaps I need two or three assignments. Maybe my smallest viable audience is globally 50 corporations, but I only have time for two or three at one time. So, I mean, that gives me work for years and years and years to come. But if I start to think like, okay, there are only 50 clients that I can work with globally, I could get, scared and stressed out. But if I also remind myself, but I only have time for one or two at the time, then I calm myself down.
Mhm.
So the smallest viable audience is something I would recommend if you are thinking about narrowing down, niching down.
So when you're going through that process, and I think you kind of touched it a little bit, is that oftentimes we know we need to niche down, but it takes confidence to say this is the way I'm going. And we sometimes feel a little bit nervous. And when I talk to women, I would hear some women talk mentioning that they don't know how to niche down, or the idea of niche down takes a lot of courage because that means that you're foregoing other opportunities. And kind
Yes.
of like what you mentioned, do I have enough, big enough a market? What was that process? Did you feel nervous, or how did you figure out how to niche down?
Well, when I understood that ideas were my thing, I just felt excited. And then I remember this very cool. I didn't really realize that I should go back to university and study psychology until a friend visited me, and she did that course that I ultimately applied for later on, and she had the psychology book. And I remember the feeling I got when I saw this book, and I said, this is what I'm supposed to be reading. This is the last piece of the puzzle. And then I applied for a course. I got in. I started reading, and I remember I was just randomly reading one afternoon, and it hit me almost like a lightning, like the real eureka moment. Only it took me 12 years. Uh, and then I knew exactly. And it felt, I don't know if you believe in the secret or the law of attraction or whatever strategy you can have, but suddenly when you know.
Hmm.
And from that moment on, there were no fears, no hesitations, nothing. Um, not once have I questioned myself. I just know that this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my career, and it's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I can feel like you are an intuitive person. We talk a lot about like you just you having that eureka moment. Well, obviously
Hmm.
you've got your eureka assistant
Yeah.
right there, Zumo. Hello, Zumo.
Quiet, quiet.
Hi,
Sorry about
Zumo.
that.
No, we need to hear from the Eureka assistant. So anybody who's heard it, that was Zumo. And but what I wanted to know is that you believe so much in that Eureka moment, the intuition.
Yeah.
How did you know? Like, and I think it ties in with that new ideas, creating ideas. Because oftentimes when we decide on one idea, one new idea, sometimes there's the doubt, is this the best idea? Is it good enough? Should I just decide on this and go for it? Can you share with us, like, how do you know that it is right? Where, yeah.
Oftentimes there are a few options. So we tend to go after an idea that is kind of safe. Okay, that is like it's safe. We
Mhm.
know it's going to work. We know it's going to make us happy. But is this the big love? Is that the thing? And I have when there are more than one or two options, I have this exercise with my friends, and this is a good thing. Um, I ask them not necessarily what they think, but I asked them to advise me on should I go forward with option A or option B, and I don't really care what they think and tell me. I only look for my immediate reaction, because if I know in my heart that option A is safe and option B is more fun and interesting and adventurous and a little bit more risky but could get a higher reward, if they say to me like, you know what, I think you should go with option A, and my immediate 1 millisecond reaction is mm, then I know exactly where I'm going. So
Mhm.
the option I'm defending, against my friend's opinion, even if it doesn't, if the opinion is correct or not, they just give me one answer, and I'm just following my intuition. If they would say to me, you know what, I go for the option B, go for the risky one, I could say, yeah, then I know. And if they say go for the option A, and I'm like, but I'm kind of one, then I also know. So this is a very good checkup on yourself. And it doesn't actually matter what your friends really think. Just have them give you an answer and just look for your immediate reaction, and you kind of will know.
Yeah, I love the fact that you're getting somebody else's feedback, but that feedback in reality is a check-in with yourself
Yes.
and with your heart. And I do
Yes.
personally, I don't often ask my friends around, but I write that, the letter, the journaling, and then really having that conversation. And for me, it's just always to check in with my heart. And that's part of the, a tool to really identify ideas. But during our sales process, as listeners, we often are entrepreneurs, business owners, we face complex ideas. And since you are the new idea generator, psychology of ideas, when we feel stuck as an entrepreneurs, with either in our sales process or in anything, operations, dealing with difficult clients, do you have some simple tips and hacks to share with the audience on how to generate ideas in times in uncertain time?
Yes. And the first and very best suggestion and advice is look for problems. Just look for problems. And I remember I had a coaching client. He was Somebody told him that he needed to go for a idea brainstorming getaway weekend, so he went to New York in hope to be inspired. And he came back and he felt nothing. And I asked him just one question, and I said, you know what, Peter, in the recent week, in the recent past 7 days, what has bothered you the most in your daily life? And he said, you know what? It's not a professional thing, but it actually bothers me that my son doesn't want to do his homework. He does not want to do his homework. An hour later, he had a solution for a platform for kids who don't want to do their homework. So he found a problem to solve in his home, in his immediate environment. He found something that he had the capacity it showed that he already had something similar, and he just didn't connect the dots. And what we do sometimes is that we overestimate the novelty factor in good ideas. Sometimes the best idea is in front of us. And Gary Vaynerchuk says it best, and I love the quote. He says, "The best idea is scratching your own itch." So
Ah.
look for ideas just around where you are in your company. How what problems can we solve for our clients at this point? And oftentimes that's more than enough.
Hmm. And so basically, if we, for example, if I was having challenges with my sales, it's to
Mm,
look for that small itch, small problems that is bothering me. For example, it could be, even though I'm thinking about my sales, I could be focusing on, hey, maybe it's a challenge with social media, maybe it's a challenge with follow up with prospective clients. So really focusing on one small problems at a time. Is that what you? Yeah.
well, what I would do, assume I'm making calls to my prospects and trying to land a deal. What I would say, well, what is it actually that you're struggling with? How can I help you buy this thing from me? What's holding you back? What obstacle do you have that we can overcome so that actually we can make this deal? Because sometimes maybe the problem isn't about when we create ideas, sometimes we focus, or oftentimes we focus on the features and the things. I am creating a very cool education platform, and then I call my prospects, and nobody's buying. And maybe the problem is that there are too many, that the process of buying my thing is too long, or maybe that there's something that is not compatible with other platforms that they are using all the time. So I'm looking for problems to solve so that I can sell my things. But if I don't have anything to sell just yet, I would go to a potential client and I would say, you know what? What are your struggles at the moment? How can I, with my expertise, help you go from where you are now to where you want to be? And if I phrase it like this, people will be eager to tell me, because if somebody is struggling with, let's assume that I'm helping a company now that don't really know how to think with a new project that is unusual for them. But I also discovered that they're struggling with everybody having their own agenda and their own piece of the company pie, and they don't really mix them together. They don't put them together ever. So what I discovered, that not only am I helping them create new ideas, but I'm also helping them um, put the team together around this new idea. So
Hmm.
I'm actually solving two problems for them. But I did an interview with with the project management, and I say, what is the structural problem that you are struggling? How come you didn't come up with this yourself? And she said to me, because everybody is so focused on their own area of the company and the business, they don't really talk to each other. We need somebody to glue us together. So that is a typical uh, idea based on a problem that already exists.
Hmm. I love the fact that when you're thinking and working with your prospective clients, you're really creating win-win-win situation.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah,
over and over again. I see when women succeed in sales, it's oftentimes not about the things we say or the tricky thing. It's about open our mind to always look for, how do I benefit the person in front of me, my prospective clients? How do
yeah,
I benefit either their organization or their clients? And if you're
yeah,
able to kind of open and explore the opportunities to help people, then you can create not just win-win situation. I always say win-win-win
when
situation.
yes,
Yes.
exactly.
And find solutions to create win-win-win situation. Exactly what you just said. Not only you're
Yeah,
helping them create new ideas, you're also helping them create a better team, a better structure.
yeah, yeah. And
So,
maybe that could from the start have been the obstacle that didn't give me the deal, had
mhm.
I not discovered that. So sometimes you need to look beyond your initial idea and look for problems that you need to overcome in order to sell your thing.
And that is the reality of today's world. Is the service we
Yeah.
offer, it's just one thing, but we are
Yes.
really truly solving a bigger picture. So rather than
Yeah.
just focusing on, for example, if you're a social media manager, rather than just thinking about, okay, I'm going to manage your social media account, it's bigger than that. It's really
Yeah.
understanding what is that big goal, the goal of the organization, what are they
Yes.
hoping to achieve, and you're part of the puzzle
Exactly.
within that
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So, do you have any kind of tips to kind of create, brainstorm new ideas? So now we talked about identifying challenge. So
Mhm.
how do you be creative? Like, for example, me myself, I find myself extremely analytical. I was a broker before. I'm a numbers person. I'm very analytical. So I'm probably listening right now, or I'm having conversation with you, and I'm like, I'm not creative enough to create new ideas. Like, if you were to hear people saying something like that, what would be the recommendation you have for them?
First and foremost, I would recommend them to just cut yourself some slack. It's not a competition. It's not it's not a competition of who gets the craziest idea wins, but also in order to be good at something, you need to do it constantly. So I would suggest you put yourself on autopilot. Just, next time you go to a grocery store, if you see something you like, think, I wonder how this idea came about. Oh, this is a smart idea. They put this display here, or that was smart. Or if you see something you don't like, think, how could I have done this better? And that is enough to just get your idea generation going. And you just put yourself on this autopilot where you will be creating ideas without even thinking about it. It's kind of annoying for the spouse and for the friends because you are always like improving things. Everything you see could be done differently, and there are some vital questions with an idea generation, and those are, how can this be done differently, and also, are there more ways in which you can do the same thing? So when you start asking yourself this, even if you're a numbers person, you could actually ask yourself, can I count this in a different way? Can I relocate this money here and here? Can we have a different solution? That is also creativity. And once you understand that this is also a form of creativity, you will take off the pressure off yourself, from being this hipster creative AD, whatever. Because sometimes when we think about idea generation and creativity, we picture an individual with a certain look and a set of skills and maybe a language and the slang and whatnot. But I one of the best things I've ever heard is also from a creativity guru named Fredrik Herén. He's the creativityexplorer.com. He's fantastic. He said, you know what? Maybe the most creative person I've met, I remember this was a long time ago, maybe the most creative person I have met this year is the nurse in the emergency room. And that is true.
Wow.
So there's not one form of creativity that's better than others, but sometimes we give more credit to those creative individuals with the iPads and um, but I think everybody is creative if we just acknowledge that we are, and if we just start thinking about new solutions to problems. That's creativity. Every
Hmm.
parent is creative.
Hmm.
I mean, we negotiate and create new ideas all the time.
Yeah, I
So
love it.
yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And especially when you talk about creativity, it's not just being creative and designing new things, but it's really solving the problem. And
Yeah.
if you position yourself as the problem solver in front of your prospective client, you are going to get sales. You are going to
Yes.
be able to close sales because it is about solving the problems
Yes.
for our prospective clients.
And sometimes it's actually smart, although I talk about ideas and idea generation all the time. So if they would meet with me, they expect me to talk about ideas all the time. But sometimes the word idea is not ideal word to use, because an idea is a novelty. By
Hmm.
definition, it's something new and useful. That's the definition of an idea. And also, if it's new, it can be a risk. So sometimes I've advised my clients to say that they have a suggestion or a thought or a solution instead of calling it an idea, because some type of bosses and clients can get scared and back off when they hear the word idea, because maybe it's a little bit overwhelming and too much. Oh, that means more work. So you can sometimes name an idea a thought
I
that's less
love
dramatic.
it. Yes, I love it. And then that could be, I mean, oftentimes that could even be a simple follow up suggestions, follow up
Yes.
strategy and say, hey, I've got an idea for your business. I've been looking at this, or I saw this article and I've got an idea for you. And that simple idea, prospective clients or business clients are looking for
Yes.
ideas to solve their complex challenges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So sometimes if we just don't put so much drama on it and just downplay the idea, itself, and just talk about solutions, then I think that will get even more sales. And also, if a person like me comes in, they expect big ideas, but that's also why they hire me. But if you're selling something, have a solution.
In the end, our clients or our prospects, they're looking for a trusted advisor. Somebody
Yes.
is there to solve
Yeah.
their problems. So, if anyone listening and they want to really foster this creativity, idea generations, do you have anything that you could share with them or any resources that they might benefit from?
Absolutely. I have two websites. I have my company website that is bibik, my last name, .co, but I also have my educational website, bibik.academy. And on that website, you need to start your language, choose your language first. But if you go to the English page, there are some free resources just to download on how to sort out your ideas if you have too many, and also how to, well, and
Yes.
also how to make your idea a reality. There is a PDF ebook that is kind of useful, and it actually covers things like imposter syndrome and fear of failure and fear of success, which is just as dangerous.
Yeah.
So those are free to download, and also I have courses on idea generation and on the psychology of ideas part. So check out bibik.academy.
Perfect. I'll make sure to link this to put this link in the podcast notes so that you can check it out,
Mhm.
and then people can also connect with you on LinkedIn as well.
Sure. Yes, LinkedIn is my top choice. I'm not very big at on social media. I That is something I actually advise my client to maybe even get rid of if they don't have enough ideas. If they have troubles with coming up with ideas, probably not all the time, but often enough, they don't consume content that is relevant enough for the future idea generation. So I kind of change what they consume. That's the first thing that we do. So instead of going to Instagram and Facebook and whatnot, they read classic books and look at documentaries and look at foreign culture movies. And I'm not the very popular coach at the time, but they thank me later. So I was actually without all social media except for LinkedIn for about 6 months. And it did wonders to my brain. I got this complete brain drain, and I had so much time on my hands. And I realized that I don't have the slightest fear of missing out on the cat videos and the breakfast and vacation posts. It gave me much more time to reread my classics, and that actually gives your brain and your creativity a big boost.
I love
So
this. I mean,
LinkedIn.
sometimes we just need a little bit of a break, and that stepping back and giving your brain a little bit of space would actually create more creativity. So, thank
Yes.
you so much, Magdalena, for coming and sharing so many ideas. I love the fact that you were talking about how you were able to pivot your business to niching down and creating a lot more business success this way and becoming the go to expert of idea generation. And thanks so much for sharing different ideas with us when it comes to creating new ideas. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. I hope you got a lot out of this. I am inspired and I'm ready to go out and find more ideas. And thank you, Magdalena, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. I look forward to talking to you next time about strategies to help you create opportunities and get more big sales. Talk to you later. Bye.